All right, today I think I want to cook it up on this Nisargadatta statement. I forget where this is from, but Nisargadatta says in one of the annotations or one of the books of Question and Answer, yeah, when you identify with the body, you fragment yourself. When you identify with the body, you fragment yourself. When you identify with the body, you fragment yourself. So obviously he says, when you identify with the body, he's saying you identify with the thinking, yeah? Or the I or the me. When the head says me or I, it's seeing a body essentially. Yeah, it's like, that's what it's referencing, a body. So he says when you identify with the body, you fragment yourself. It's beautiful because it's like in non-duality, you are what you're looking for, or you are existence, consciousness, bliss. So let's say you could use the word wholeness or completeness, yeah? If your nature is already complete, wholeness, there's something which is breaking that apart, essentially, and it's the identification with the body or with the thinking. So the experience of, let's say, your nature being wholeness is getting broken into pieces. When you identify with the body, you fragment yourself. That's so beautiful because it's like what Ramesh Balsekar would say, the head is conditioned, the thinking is conditioned thinking. So while it feels like we're doing that thinking, there is no doer at the base of that thinking, yeah? The thinking is conditioned. Ramesh would say by essentially conditioned by what the life has experienced or the body has experienced through this life and then through DNA. So while you think that you are doing that thinking, or there's a sense of doership of that thinking, of that thought system, and the doership of this body, you're not doing that. It's conditioned. Yeah? That's why it's very repetitive. So like in recovery, we would hear people say stuff like, I keep doing this to myself, or I keep relapsing, or I'm doing this, yeah? But really what's doing that is the conditioned thought system. And it keeps doing the same thing because it's conditioned, like a program, yeah? Like a computer program does the same thing over and over again. Well, this is the same movement as the mental system, essentially. And when you identify with that mental system through the thought I, meaning this mental system is my mental system, then you end up fragmenting your experience seemingly the same way that it's always been fragmented. So that's one way. I feel like I'm doing the thinking, but there is no doer of the thinking. So what is the thinking? Yeah, the thinking can only see the past, like they say in the Course of Miracles. So from past ideas and research, the thinking is operating. Yeah, and it's conditional. Or sorry, conditioned and conditional, but conditioned. So it's kind of always seeing the same way in many ways, and it's breaking apart the experience. So as soon as you identify with the body, you fragment yourself, meaning you fragment the original wholeness of your true face or of your true nature. It gets broken apart by the mental system. Also, the senses break that apart because senses grab onto, like eyes grab onto forms, and when the eyes grab onto forms, there's a body here and a form there, and that's fragmenting the wholeness of the space of your nature, which is pervading all of this, yeah? So as soon as the I thought comes into play, the I thought identifies with this body. And then all of the contents which comes after that I thought is conditioned. And it's breaking this body apart. Now it's J, and now it's worthless J, or alcoholic J, or whatever J. Form of conditioned thought that it's going to present is going to break up the space of awareness which is unifying this whole thing, yeah? So the experience of even a body as a whole piece gets broken up. As soon as that you identify with the head, it breaks apart this experience of the body, and then it breaks apart this experience of the body with the environment. It's really beautiful, that phrase is really beautiful. When you identify with the body, you fragment yourself. So the head, essentially the mental system, through the thought I, identifies with this body. Now there's a body here and a world there. So that's what would fragment, yeah? Separation, let's say. As soon as you identify with the I, it gets fragmented. Yeah? So it fragments my experience as a body from the world, and then it also fragments this body into this body's now worthless, or this body's great, or this body's this way or this way. Then the eyes pull forward and the attention comes up high, let's say. That's why in Zen they're always kind of saying settle downward in the body. It's to balance out that fragmentation of the body and then body and environment. So really identifying with the body fragments multiple things. It fragments the sense of individuality, the wholeness of the experience of the body, of where it sits in space. Yeah, it fragments the sense of self through all its conditioned ideas about this body, meaning now it's not a body, now it's a J, and it's a J who's less than everybody else or whatever. And then it divides also this body from the environment. So when you identify with the body, it fragments the wholeness of experience, both as an individual in the body and as an individual with the environment. That's really something. Because your original face, as they would say in Zen, is not fragmented. There's a space which is pervading this whole experience of body and of world. Yeah, let's call it a unifying space or something. And it's really the origination or the popping, the appearance of the I thought, which then establishes all these different parts, these different pieces. So that wholeness is now seemingly broken into different pieces. So when you identify with that I thought, you fragment yourself. So essentially, you could look at it this way: you're not fragmenting yourself, but when the mental system puts a a little bubble called I in the open space, if you identify with the I thought, then you identify with all the thoughts that come after it, and that fragments your experience. And now there's seemingly something to fix. And if you're identified with the body and you're trying to, let's say, get relief, the body can't get out of the body identification. So really the only option, it seems, would be to see that it's identification with the body that's fragmenting your experience. And if the body is not identified in that solid way, then there's nothing fragmented, essentially. There is no separate entity which is suffering from all this, despite the fact that there's some appearance of a brain, mental system, and based on the thought I, which is fragmenting. Yeah. So he's saying clearly, let's just get the thing so I don't mess it up. When you identify with the body, you fragment yourself. It's amazing, because there is a sense of individuality popping up in this body. Let's say a sense of J or me appearing in this body through the mental system. And it is fragmenting, and so are the senses. Yeah? The senses are going out, grabbing at objects. The ears, the eyes going out at objects, the ears listening to sounds, and identifying those sounds through a mental system. So there is a sense of individuality which is fragmenting the experience. But it's our identification with the first thought, the I or the me, that takes us into that fragmentation. Otherwise, there is no sense of fragmentation until I identify with what's fragmenting, seemingly. Yeah? But what's fragmenting our experience is an appearance. It's not a thing. There's no thing called I which is dividing our experience. There's something presenting as an individual, but let's say there's something presenting as an individual, but there is no thing that is individual. in this experience. But when you identify with the I thought, it fragments because the head is taking this body to be a separate, independent thing from everything else. And that's not bad. Yeah, there is a sense of individuality. You need it to walk through this world, but that is not your nature. Because obviously he's saying if you don't identify with the body, your experience is not fragmented. Yeah? Meaning your true nature pervades both this sense of individuality and the world around. And yeah, that's really great. It's kind of like the listening thing. Like if you sit down and you listen, like they would in Zen practice. Listen without conditional thought, yeah? There's a big space there, essentially, that's listening. And then your head pops up seemingly inside of this body in that space with thoughts, or I, or identifying sounds and all these things, yeah? But the space in which that appears is always there. It's ever present, let's say. Yeah, you're always on, essentially. Your nature as awareness is always on. And it's like wide open, pervading body and environment. Yeah, this is all like, this is all appearing within that space. And it appears as two-ness, yeah, to a body. So when you identify with that body, all you see is two-ness. But when you don't identify with that body, through that thought, me or I, there's a wide open space which pervades this two-ness into not, let's say, not two-ness before two-ness appears. Or two-ness appears within not two-ness, yeah? Wow. So our experience as a body is fragmented. And you'll notice when you think about yourself, there's a bunch of opinions which are fragmenting this body. So this body would be here, appearing in the open space of what you are, and then there's nothing going on really, the body's just here, and then the head sells a bunch of opinions about this body. This body's worthless, this body's amazing, this body needs to be better, this body's depressed, this body's super happy, on and on, yeah? That's all appearing within a much more open space, essentially. So when you identify with the mental chatter, the radio station of the mental chatter, it fragments this experience. Both as a body and as a body with the environment. When you don't identify with the mental chatter, and you see that the I, there is no I in the center of this, the experience is not fragmented. And that's great news. Because if your experience is fragmented, then there's a hell of an urge to unify that experience. But usually if you're identified with the body, what wants to unify the experience is a fragmented sense of individuality. And that sense of individuality cannot unify the whole experience. Yeah, it's by seeing that there's no individual that you stop identifying with that mental appearance of a you, and then there's no fragmentation. It's like form is emptiness and emptiness is form, you know. Emptiness, open space, let's say your nature, being emptiness, form appears within that emptiness. And then that form is pervaded by emptiness. Yeah, so those things co-arise, maybe. Coexist, these two things. This open space, and then the forms which appear. But the forms become very uncomfortable because the experience becomes fragmented into separate forms. And especially as a mental system, that form has a bunch of opinions about this form in the body and a bunch of opinions about the world. Yeah. So I feel like really when we're looking for relief, we're looking for relief with what we're identified as a body. When you identify with the body, your experience becomes very fragmented. And it becomes uncomfortable because it's presenting all of this separation through all of these conditioned ideas, which you feel you're doing, but there is no doer. Yeah? So who do those ideas arise to? Me. Well, you're not that me. That me is not a thing. That's one of the appearances of the mental. It's just that all the other conditioning is based on that. So when you identify with the me or I thought, you identify with this body, and then the conditioning, the conditioned mental system, which is totally reliant on that me-ness, starts to dictate life to you, essentially. Dictates opinions about the world and about this body, and then the experience becomes fragmented. So when you identify with the mental system, it feels like you're doing it, but you're not doing it. It's conditioned. And it's breaking apart this life as a body and as a body in a world. And usually, at least for me, it's making me very uncomfortable. Yeah. So this has been this message of not to, the Haku and soft butter thing, and that open listening, both from Nada Yoga and Zen, exposed this thing to. I feel it's exposed something to me, that the open space of listening is not fragmented. It pervades this body and environment, and then there's an appearance of a mental system which comes up, and when you identify with that mental system, you identify with this body, and as soon as that happens, the conditioned ideas or beliefs or whatever of this head start to project both onto this body and onto the world, and that makes things very uncomfortable. Because it's almost like you're no longer living life. Now life is being dictated to you. And you feel like you're doing that dictation, but really it's conditioning. That's the false God, as Ramana would say, or in recovery, something is playing God in your life. And the mental system is playing God, but it's playing God under the idea that it's God, and it's not God. But it's still playing that idea, yeah? So when you identify with it, it fragments your experience. It's no longer direct experience. Now it's an interpretation of this life. And that interpretation is based on old information. So it's not even really interpreting what's happening. It's interpreting what's happening through a past view. And so it's not even fragmenting what's happening right now, really. It's seeing, the head is seeing from a past view and trying to paint what's happening in experience right now from that past view. And it's really confusing a lot of stuff. But the open space, which is not fragmented, is ever present, pervading this whole thing. And therein lies the relief, I suppose. So when you identify with the body, it breaks apart the wholeness, seemingly. Yeah, it's a bunch of appearances which seem to be separate. And now the wholeness, the relief of wholeness is now broken apart into pieces. And now it's this body versus that body, or this body versus that world. And this body has a bunch of conditioned ideas about this body and that world. And they're distorted, essentially. When my head used to sell me all these ideas of worthlessness and these crazy ideas that would really depress, obviously, the system, then you want to get out of that, so you start drinking or whatever. Those are appearances, and those are based on old conditioned thoughts and ideas. And they're selling something. Yeah? And if you're identified as the body, you're going to buy what the head is selling. Because there's a sense of doership. There's no doer, but there's a sense that you're doing those thoughts. And now you need to stop those thoughts or change those thoughts. But the more you mess with them, the more immersed you get in that mental system. So Advaita and not two clears something up. Chan clears something up. It's the identification with the body as the I thought or me that fragments it all in the first place. And I tried to change the conditioning because I didn't see it as conditioning. Yeah, I saw it as conditioned ideas that I was the doer of, and being the doer of those conditioned ideas, I'm now going to change them. And that failed quite badly. Yeah. But as Nisargadatta says, it's the identification with the body that fragments your experience. Because as soon as you identify the conditioned thinking, the programming, the programmed thinking has you. And it always seems to think the same way. Yeah? It's got the same views about this world and this body within the context of this world. And it's false. It's the false God. Well, those are Ramana's words, not mine, so don't blame me. So when you identify with this body, it fragments your experience. I gotta get the words right before I finish. When you identify with the body, you fragment yourself. Wow. You fragment the experience of the body through all of the interpretations of this body that your head has. As soon as you identify with that thinking as your thinking, now you're bound to the commentary that this head has about this body and this world. When you identify with the body, you fragment both the sense of individuality as a body, as well as fragmenting the unified space. So the open space of open awareness, as soon as it identifies, that it gets identified with the body, now it's a separate experience. And I want to get out of that separation. That's what a lot of spiritual seeking is. But you can't get out of that separation as the separated identity because it can only see two-ness. It can only see from a fragmented sense, of two-ness, this and that, essentially. But that open space, which is not identified with this body, let's say the open listening, that is not fragmented. That can't be fragmented. The only thing that can be fragmented, both as a body and as a body in a world, would be a sense of identification as an individual. And there really is no individual thing. There's an identification with a body which creates the sense of individuality. But before that is the ever-present open space in which that arises and moves through, So this two-ness appears in a unified field, which is unifying the experience. You are, as a nature, that unified field before the mental system claims it as me. As soon as the mental system goes, I am this thing, it's got you from the sense of the body. And that's when the mayhem begins, let's say. So when you identify with the body, you fragment. But it's really a seeming fragmentation. You can't fragment the wholeness which pervades this experience. It's like a play in a way, or like a movie, There's like a movie, like Ramana says, the screen on which the movie appears is not part of the screen. So the open space of listening, whatever awareness, whatever you want to call it, that pervades this sense of individuality and separateness is ever present. And it doesn't matter how crazy this sense of individuality, how crazy the head gets, and how separate you think you feel, it is pervaded by openness. So the open unified space which pervades body and world, the unifying space is never actually broken apart. It's an appearance that it gets broken apart as soon as the body gets identified with. And that's great news that what you are in your nature is never broken apart. That what's broken apart with all these ideas and interpretations about the body is like a seeming appearance. But your nature is never broken apart. It's through the identification with the body as an individual that you get tied into that mental conditioning. It's such a beautiful statement. When you identify with the body or the sense of individuality, it fragments. It's unreal. It's such a beautiful, it's such a beautiful message. To know that wholeness is not consequential. You don't have to earn it, and you don't have to, that unifying space of what you are is ever available, let's say. It's ever present. Before the mayhem of individuality begins. Before that. That's why it's really a negation. It's a negation of the sense of individuality that sits you back into that ever-present wholeness. Yeah. Or like if you do the listening stuff, which I served me a lot as a body, the listening stuff. Listening without mental commentary, just direct listening, you can see the mental system come in and divide. Yeah. There's a wide open space which is aware of both the mental system and the body. And it definitely pervades the body because you feel the body like completely let go as soon as that space is open. And then you can hear the mental system pop up or appear in it. Like a note in space, yeah? It's like nothing, open space, and then a note appears. Me. But it doesn't change the space. And it's great. That open space is always there, just listening. Not listening to the mental system, it's just there, open. Stillness, listening to everything move through it. If you identify with that me note, then you fragment. Yeah? Then the experience gets broken into pieces. If you see it, and you see that it's not you, you don't identify with it, and it goes right through the space without affecting that space at all. And it's great. It's great. That's how you see the sense of individuality arise. There's no individual, and it's arising in a wide open space, which is unifying the whole experience. So much relief in that, to be able to disentangle from that individuality as a body. Yeah. It's a real solution, maybe.